interesting presentations. I just want to do a different slant on it to a certain extent, which is how do you make your time it become your time? So as what Stephen Covey would said was that let's have the end in mind. So what I'm going to do is give you a mental tool that you can use anytime, anywhere, at any level, in any situation, to help you making sure it's your time. Now, here's the hard part. You can only make it your time when you take responsibility for yourself. You can only make it your time when you're honest to yourself. You can only make it your time when you're authentic to yourself and you have integrity. I've helped and supported many people over the years in both the military, the fire service, and 25 years in colleges, universities. And I got fascinated with how people, it's predictable for things to happen. And everyone go, oh, I knew that was going to happen to me. So when you're going to make it your time, you need to make sure that you're on the right path. And to understand that, you have to understand how this works. And that's why I got into understanding neurology. And what neurology is the word particularly is agency. So I say to all the people I come across and teach, I'm lucky to teach and think, I'm actually not going to teach you anything. I'm not going to teach you about ISO 9000. I'm going to teach you about project management, leadership. I'm actually trying to release a feeling from inside you that's already there. It's just, I'll get you to see it. And to do that, you've got to understand how the brain works. Now, the brain works with what Liverpool University and Oxford University call is agency. So they can actually measure how the brain works, and that's called agency. And there's 3 steps to agency. You get given agency, you feel agency, and then you take agency. So if you bear with me, that's okay. So you get given, you take, you feel, and then you take. So I used to have a problem with weight, and I still do. So when someone turns around and goes, here's a cake, that situation in the brain, you've given agency. So what that means is there's a situation, a conversation, or something that's happened in front of you that gives you agency. That cake gives you agency, and the brain recognizes that's something different that's gone before. So once you get given that agency, your brain then goes to the next phase, which is feel agency. So you feel agency. Should I eat that cake? Should I not eat that cake? Or should I eat part of that cake? And then obviously the next part is a take agency. And the take agency is basically you either eat that cake, don't eat that cake, or eat part of that cake. But it's a feeling in the brain. And this goes back, this is nothing new. And Liverpool University and Oxford University can measure this. So say someone falls down in front of you on the floor, that situation is giving you agency. You feel that you should do something or do nothing. And then obviously when you do something or walk away, you've taken agency. So that's how the brain works. Here's the hard part. All accidents are predictable. All problems in life are predictable. You put on weight, not reading the book, not gaining that knowledge, not opening yourself to experience. That's what happens in the brain. So if you don't eat that cake, you're going to put on weight. You know authentically in your head, when you look at that cake, you go, oh, that's a cake. I'm going to eat that cake. And you end up putting on weight. It's predictable. If you don't go to the gym, you'll be less fit. It's predictable. Or do some form of exercise, like walking. If you don't gain that knowledge, it's predictable. You're not going to have a better understanding of the situation if you don't gain that knowledge. And if you don't open yourself to that experience, it's predictable. You're not going to be able to. So when you lack knowledge, you put on weight or you get unhealthy. It is predictable. So how does that fit into your mind, into my time? Well, the tool I'm going to show to you helps you reduce that predictability, because unfortunately, if you don't take responsibility for your life and you don't take the right decisions in your life, then it won't be your time. Don't worry, I know it's a bit dark on this side, but it will be light on the other side of what I'm going to talk about. And where did I learn this? I met a guy many years ago called Alan Brunacini, and he was the chief of Phoenix Fire Brigade. And he wanted to reduce the stress of how to make people make better decisions and take better decisions in major incidents. So if there's a crane, clash, earthquake, disaster, or anything, everyone turns up at a rendezvous point. And in this rendezvous point, there's a big vehicle. And he wanted to reduce the stress of people to actually make and take decisions at the incident. So anyway, as they're driving along, he put a red light above the unit. So even you didn't have to talk to any, you knew when you saw the red light, it was a dangerous area. There was problems in that area that you couldn't deal with. It was a defensible fire. It was a dangerous fire. You don't go into that fire or that incident, and you don't go into the inner cordon. So straight away, without anyone talking, it was a red light and you couldn't do anything. On the opposite, there was a green light. So you had all the skills. So when you saw the skills, you knew anything that you're given, or a role you've been given, or a task you're given, you can deal with it. So the green light meant you have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have the experience, and everything you're about to see on this incident is manageable and workable. And interestingly, the British Fire Service never really got round the other light, which is the yellow light. So when you're driving along, you see a yellow light, and it means parts of the incident are dangerous and defensive, and parts of the things you can do everything with all your skills. So it's a question in your head. So you have to ask questions more, and it raises the risk. So a red light was do not stop doing things and be defensible. A green light was do everything you want, and a yellow one was ask any questions. If you go back to Socrates many years ago in Greek mythology and Plato, they come up with a view of wisdom. And what wisdom is, and Socrates said there's three elements to wisdom. You know the things you know, and that's habit. And that's the green light. So that means you know the things you know. You know because of knowledge, you know because of experience, you know because of everything, that everything's possible. So it's habits. So that's the green light. The amber light is you know the things you don't know. So that means you know there's something going on, but you don't know how to deal with it just yet, but there is information around there, and that's the amber light. The red light is wisdom, which is accept the things you don't know that you don't know. So that means you haven't got a clue what to do, and that's where you become defensible, and also you need to think about the dangers associated to that. So that's Alan Brunacini, and that's all he wanted to do. Was he wanted to make sure that whatever you did, he wanted to reduce that stress. So let's go back to agency in the brain. You give an agency, you take. So how do you do this in regard to your time? So everything you do in life is your responsibility. There's no getting away from that. And if you want it to be your time, make sure you take responsibility of yourself. Maslow has a hierarchical of needs, and he calls the top one is usually self-actualization. There's actually one above that called transcendence. And transcendence, on his advanced model, is that you're happy with your soul, you're happy with your mind, and you're happy with your heart. And that's very rarely people reach that place. But you can actually reach that place if you use this very simple system. Take responsibility yourself, and don't shy away from the dangers in your life. So don't eat that cake. Because when you look at that cake, it's a red, you're going to put weight on. But if it's a green, you've been to the gym, eat the cake. But take responsibility and eat the cake. It's like if you see someone, if you're talking to a girl or a boy, you look at them first off, it's green, green, green. They open their mouth and you go amber, and then they say something, it's a red. I'm not going to have a relationship with them. But people shy away from those very hard discussions in the head. So to actually make sure it's your time, take responsibility of yourself, be authentic to yourself, because you can't be authentic and honest to yourself. You can't be authentic to honest anybody else. So don't eat that cake. Go to that gym. Read that book. Engage with people positively and put aside toxic people. I don't mean forever. Just don't accept those toxic people in your life that are going to stop you doing things. because they will. And make sure you put them to a side. Don't come off them particularly, just do that. But make sure you engage with that person positively and gain that knowledge. If you want to take time, every successful people always wants to learn. As Aristotle says, you know the things you don't know, which is the gateway to learning. And when you lack knowledge, skills, or experience, go for it. Once you go for it, the world is your oyster. So to conclude my presentation today is go with your greens. When you're happy to do something, go with your greens. You got the knowledge, you got the skills. Stop your reds. So when you have a doubt about someone, or you're asked to fill that document in that must be a bit of a false document, or you're asked to do something which is not really fitting in with your personality, it's not a bad thing. But stop doing the things that other people want you to. Bystander mentality is a massive thing, and that's something else to talk about on the thing. People will follow blindly and do things. Basically, they're following the reds. It always ends in tears. If you think of any incident that's happened in the world, it's always predictable. As Scott Perrow says, and Scott Snook says, that after the event, it's predictable. No one always followed the reds and never followed the greens. So in England, there was a thing called the Hillsborough Disaster in 1996. There was in Tottenham in 1991. People got crushed. There was in a match 2 weeks later, 2 years later, with Leeds, the same end, Leppings Lane end. People got crushed. So when it came to the game in 96, there was reds flying all around the game. Shouldn't be played. Shouldn't be played. But people followed the reds because of money, finance, and conformity to a situation. No, someone wouldn't have died if they went with the greens at the beginning. So deal with the question in your head. Make sure you do it. So go with your greens, question your yellows, and stop your reds. Make it your time. Be honest, authentic, and believe in yourself